Hi everybody, welcome to Mobility Monday. My name is Bart Hawkinson, physical therapist at Therapeutic Associates, North Lake Physical Therapy. Today we're going to be talking about shoulder mobility, specifically shoulder girdle mobility. So what do we talk about when we say shoulder girdle? We're talking about not just the arm and the socket here, but the entire thing and how that moves together. So shoulder mobility, in a word, is complex. The shoulder is made up of the arm bone as it connects to the shoulder blade or scapula bone, the collarbone, and each of those have some movement. The collarbone then attaches to the sternum, and the shoulder blade sits on the back on the rib cage. And your trunk mobility actually has some interplay in how your arm moves. So when we're talking about limitations in your ability to reach, we look all the way down the chain into how your trunk moves. A simple little test where anybody can kind of see how this works is if I stand up in the best posture and I reach up overhead, you can see how far my arm goes. If I let myself slump and I try that same reach, it's not nearly as far. So that rib and thoracic spine mobility plays into that. So we're going to work up some stuff here that I really like. I do this myself. I don't have the best posture all the time. And that helps maintain and improve mobility through all of those component pieces that make up the shoulder girdle and how well we're able to reach up overhead. All right, so when we start to work through mobility of the shoulder girdle, I like to start from the center out, which means I like to start through the center of the rib cage and the thoracic spine and work on mobility there. So the first movement we'll work through is going to be laying down. I call this the open book stretch. So I'm laying on my side, I've got my hips stacked, and I'm at a 90-degree angle through here. I'm going to take my right arm, I'm going to reach forward a little bit, and then I'm going to come up, and now I'm keeping my arm in line with the plane of my chest here as I rotate back. So important things here, head and neck are supported, so okay to use a pillow under here if you like, or opposite arm. My arm stays in line with the plane of my chest. It doesn't break plane. It doesn't drop down like that, as that puts undue strain on the front of the shoulder joint. And then as I rotate, I want to make sure that my knees stay down and don't come up like that, because then that just sort of invalidates the stretch here. So coming as far as I can. Once I hit a comfortable limit there, I'm going to take a nice breath. As I exhale, I might be able to get just a little bit more movement, and then I'll come out of that. We'll do 10 repetitions of that routinely to work on that mobility. So going as far as I can, breath in, breath out, trying to gain a little bit more movement. Okay. Next piece that we'll work on now is the upper thoracic spine. So it's kind of that area we kind of can't quite reach there. And I'm going to use one of these half foam rollers. If you don't have access to one of these, I mean, a full foam roller does work. A longer one works just fine. You can also roll up a towel, a nice tight towel roll, and that works as well too. So I'm going to put this here, and I'm going to lay over that. So I'm going to get that upper thoracic area right on that foam roller, and I kind of work around until I'm in the right spot. Now, I'm supporting my head and neck here. So as I move into this stretch, I want to make sure that my neck doesn't hyperextend. So fingers are interlocked. I'm going to come up just a little bit further, and I'm just feeling for where does it feel the most tight in my upper back. It might be a little higher, it might be a little lower, but for me it's right there. I'm going to keep my head supported. I'm going to keep my lower back down on the ground. I'm going to extend back as I exhale, like I'm trying to move my forearms towards the floor and come back up out of that. Maybe I'll move just a little bit, like one vertebrae lower there, and move into that stretch. Nice and easy. Not uncommon to feel little clicks and pops in the back as you do that. As long as you're moving slow, that's just fine. Supporting the head to make sure the neck doesn't hyperextend. Breath in, breath out, and out of that. Again, I'll do about 10 repetitions. All right, the next thing that we're going to work through here is to stretch through the lat and the shoulder girdle muscles. So I'm going to get into this position here, and I'm going to do a prayer stretch, but I'm going to do a little modification to my prayer stretch. So my knees here are shoulder width apart, and I'm going to sit back here, but now I'm going to really walk my arms forward. As I walk my arms forward, I drop my chest down towards the floor as far as is comfortable, taking some nice breaths in and out, and come back out of it. Now, it's key with this to not just drop straight back down, but to really think about reaching forward with the arms too. That helps to create a more natural, more proper stretch. Okay? So I'm into that. I'll take a breath in, breath out, and come out of the stretch. Now, that's part one. I'll do that one time. Now, I'm going to walk my hands off to the side. Now I'm really emphasizing my lat muscle on my right side. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm dropping back down. I don't go quite as far just because it's tight there. I'm trying to walk those fingers forward as I drop down. Breath in, breath out. Trying to drop a little lower. It's like I'm trying to bring my armpit towards the floor as far as it'll go. Okay. Now, same thing on the other side. So I'm walked off to the other side, down, breath in, breath out. Trying to keep my fingers walked forward as I go, and back out of it. Okay. Probably going to notice that there's a difference. One side might be tighter than the other. That's fairly common. Oftentimes it's the dominant side that has less mobility. So I'm right-handed. My right arm doesn't move quite as well. Straight to the middle, walking my fingers forward as I go down into the stretch. Breath in, breath out, come up out of it. Off to one side, down into the stretch, walking my fingers forward as I go. Breath in, breath out, coming up out of that, and then off to the other side. Breath in, breath out, and up out of the stretch. Next stretch here is focused on the muscles in the back of the shoulder here. So I'm going to lay on my right side, bring my arm out at a 90-degree angle here. So I've got a 90-degree angle at my elbow, and I've got a 90-degree angle between my arm and my torso. My shoulders are stacked one on top of the other. From here, I'm going to bring my arm down, pushing down towards the floor. We call this the sleeper stretch. Go nice and easy with this one. This is really important not to push quickly or too aggressively. You want to allow those muscles to relax as you go. Get to the point where you feel kind of the end of the stretch or a little discomfort in the shoulder. Stop there, hold, couple breaths, come out of this one. We'll do 10 repetitions of this. I always say with these stretches, your last one should be your best, meaning if you're doing them right, it's going to get more and more flexible as you go, and you'll be able to go a little bit further each time. If you go too hard right out of the gate, you'll make yourself sore, or worse, you might pinch something, in which case you won't want to do anymore, or it'll get worse and get tighter and get worse the more you go. So start out easy, go slow. Last one should be your best. Now I'm going to do a series of stretches to open up the front of the shoulder here. So I'm going to be laying on my back here. Stretch number one, bring my arms up, 90-degree angle at the elbow, and now my arms are like, imagine the pages of a book opening up. I'm going to bring my forearms towards the floor as far as I can go. I should feel a stretch in the front of my shoulders, maybe into the pecs, chest. Hold there for a breath or two and back up. Coming back together and doing that 10 times. Next one, we're going to do a little swimming maneuver here. So my arms are up like this, palms together, and I'm going to bring one arm up and one arm down, trying to bring my hands towards the floor. You can see that up arm doesn't quite reach the floor. That's okay. That's as far as it's going to go. Back together. Same thing to the other side. Again, this is one of those places where you may feel some asymmetry. Interestingly for me here, I've been doing these stretches primarily with my right side here, and I'm actually moving a little bit better on my right. So just like the last one, your last stretch should be your best. Go nice and easy, and as you do more, the mobility should open up. Okay. Final one here, we'll call this an angel. So sort of like making snow angels. I'm going to bring my arms down to the side, and I'm going to come up as high as I can overhead and back down. Now, a couple key things. This is another one that can be a little bit of an aggressive stretch. So we've done a whole bunch of stuff to this point. This is not a stretch that I would want to do cold. I wouldn't want it to be my first one. So I've put this in this order for a reason, because it does put a little more potential stress through the system. I want to loosen things up a little bit, warm things up before I get into this one. The other thing is, even if you're warmed up and you've been doing this for a bit, a lot of people don't have the flexibility to have their hands all the way onto the ground through the whole motion, and guess what? I'm one of those people. So I'm not going to force that. I'm just going to find what's the comfortable arc of motion that my hands can go into as I carry all the way around. I'm not going to force it down, because I get to somewhere around here and I get a little pinch point in my shoulder. So I'm not going to push through that. I'm going to let my hands come up just a little bit. I'm still getting a strong stretch there. And I'm going to try to touch my hands together overhead. If I can't get there, that's okay. I'm going to go as far as is comfortable. I'm also being mindful not to let my lower back hyperextend to get there, but I'm keeping a good neutral position. And the final one that we're going to work through here is a rotational stretch that works through the whole shoulder girdle. So we call this the thread the needle. I'm going to get into position like so. My right arm, I'm going to reach down, so threading the needle, reaching between my arm and my leg, reaching out that way. And then from here, I'm going to add a little bit to it. I'm going to come up, and I'm going to open the front of the chest as I go, being mindful to keep my head and neck in neutral, so my eyes follow along, but I'm not going to extend. I'm not going to hyperextend my neck. Just going as far as it's comfortable, coming back, and now I can add a little bit more to it by reaching and kind of leaning into the stretch, like I'm trying to put my back of my shoulder towards the floor or as far as it's comfortable, stretching out the muscle in the back of the shoulder, coming up out of that, stretching out the muscles in the front of the shoulder, again, keeping the low back in neutral, keeping the neck in neutral. Doing about 10 repetitions on each side. Again, these are ending with fairly strong, powerful stretches. So go slow, be conservative. The last one should be your best, meaning start easy and go big. Listen to your body. Don't push past through pain. Don't put yourself in any pinched positions, and make sure that you're moving slow enough so that you can feel a problem before it becomes a big problem. All right, everybody, so today we talked about some shoulder mobility, shoulder girdle mobility exercises. We went a little bit into relevant anatomy. These are stretches that I really like. They tend to be sort of big, powerful stretches. It's really important to listen to your body, sort of scale these appropriate. So don't feel like you need to go to a certain point, but just move through that range. There's always going to be a point where it starts to feel a little tight. You want to pay attention to that. Just move into that tightness, but don't push through it. Paying attention to what it feels like in the shoulder, especially pinching. Pinching in the shoulder is not a great thing, and it's not something we should ever push through. A nice, comfortable stretch, great. A little bit of discomfort, okay. But anything sharp, anything pinching, anything that's significant, find that point, kind of back off from it. And these are not going to be for everybody. So if some of these stretches you consistently feel a pinch point with it each time, it might just not be the stretch for you, even if you've scaled it back a little bit. All right. So take care of your shoulders, be safe, be healthy, and everybody keep moving.